I'm Hal Kemp, owner of a mid-sized company called Better Than Thought. We build unique rooms or buildings for those who can afford it. I was named CEO when my father handed over the company to me, but he insisted that I start at the bottom so that I would gain a solid understanding of how things should be done. I was a man of action. Although I was computer savvy, I loved working with my hands. One of the craftsmen, Derek, looked in the door, asking if I was buying the first round of drinks, since the guys had completed a grandiose construction and even 2 days ahead of schedule. The job generated $24 million in revenue and referrals for the company, so I bought the first 2 rounds and their favorite sandwich at a pub called Stubby's. It was the best place in the area. I called Jerry, the pub owner, and asked him to open the back room as about 38 people were coming to celebrate, and also asked him to beef up the kitchen staff. We both agreed that we didn't want a repeat of the situation like a few weeks ago, when the pub regulars saw the construction workers celebrating and a couple of my boys wanted to dance, so they pulled back the folding wall to gain access to the dance floor and all the women present. I arrived first, told Jerry I would cover the entire bill, and gave him my card to pay for today's festivities. We'd known each other since second grade, so I wasn't worried about faking the bill. My guys started arriving and orders were taken. After 45 minutes, everyone was there, and I gave a speech thanking them for their hard work and telling them that I was paying the bill today, so don't go overboard. They had a good laugh about it. Then, as I raised my beer to toast my tired team, I heard my phone ring with a message. I decided to wait and check it later, but as soon as I took a bite of my ham and cheese sandwich, my phone started receiving messages one after another, and I thought I wouldn't be able to enjoy my sandwich, so I took it out. Suddenly, I stopped feeling hungry. The messages were from an unfamiliar number, but the messages themselves bothered me. First, your wife, Becky, is cheating on you. Interesting. Second, audio of a man's voice saying that ass is just for him, and my wife's voice saying her ass is just for him. Third, now I wonder. I just sat there watching my world crumble around me, and all I could do was watch it all fall. I noticed that my beer was suddenly empty. I slowly stood up and walked towards the bar. I needed something more appropriate for the occasion and started with a single malt bourbon while sending the person a message. Who is this? Answer: I am a friend in need, and you really need a friend. Then I sent, apparently you know us, so tell me, who is this? So what do you need, money? Next message: nothing more than you willingly give me. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I sent the answer. There was no answer, but Jerry noticed that something was wrong with me and came over to find out what was going on. I just handed him the car keys and told him to leave the bottle. His eyes narrowed at me, but he also knew better than to push when I was in this state. I've finished 2 of the 4 apartments upstairs, and you can take one of the empty ones for the night. We'll talk in the morning. Then he pushed the rest of my sandwich towards me. Drinking on an empty stomach is just a disaster. The heartbreak pain gradually subsided as I emptied the bottle, and in a haze I remember ordering another one as I was in danger of finishing the first. Then I remember joining the celebration with the team. Then everything went gray and I was plunged into blackness. I woke up with a huge head, lying on an uncomfortable bed, and suddenly noticed that I had 2 right hands. Then I realized and sat on the edge of the bed, noticing that there was a woman under me, and we were both fully clothed. As I rolled over to sit on the edge of the bed, the woman moaned loudly, and her knuckles seemed to crack a couple of times as she rolled over, looked at me, and smiled slowly. I asked if she knew how we ended up in this situation. She told me about the party downstairs and how it kept everyone happy until closing time. Then 4 of my drunken co-workers tried to help me up to my apartment. She came out of her apartment to see what was going on and decided to help when my friends just pushed me towards the bed, not realizing that she was between me and the bed, and since I was heavy, she couldn't move me, and that's how we fell asleep. I apologized for what happened and explained that my world was falling apart, leading to the drinking and now this embarrassment, and offered her breakfast. She interrupted me, saying she didn't want breakfast, but wanted me to promise that she would be my first date after my divorce was final. I agreed but commented that it was strange how we met when she hugged me and kissed me more passionately than I had ever kissed. We exchanged names and numbers. Then I went looking for coffee and food, knowing they were downstairs. I needed to refuel with coffee and something sweet to gain some energy, but I wasn't expecting a conversation with Jerry. After all, Becky was his half-sister. I sat down at the table when Honey brought out a plate of scrambled eggs with cheese, thick-cut bacon, and toast with jam. She then returned with 2 cups of coffee and placed them in front of us. She winked and left Jerry and I alone to talk. I thought that the sooner I finished this, the sooner I could start putting things in order. Becky, Jerry, and I went to different schools, but we all went to the same college. Jerry and I were starting our 3rd year when Becky entered her first. Becky was a real beauty back then, and her ass showed how hard she worked on herself. Her brown hair fell to the middle of her back, framing her face. Everything changed when Becky and her boyfriend were chosen to receive an award. Soon after, they had a huge fight and broke up at a party. I agreed to replace it with dinner at my favorite seafood restaurant. We drank too much and woke up in her bed together. Sunlight was shining through the crack in the blinds. I looked at her, and she was already looking at me, saying that she had always been in love with me, and when she saw a chance for us to be together, she made sure that I was drunk so that it would happen. It happened. I told her she didn't need to get me drunk, and we rolled over to make love. 14 months later, we got married. Jerry's look said he wanted to know what was going on, but didn't know where to start, so I started with started and let him look through the texts and listen to the audio recording. A tear rolled down his right cheek as he handed me the phone. I never would have thought Becky could do this. God, Hal, I'm so sorry. I assured him that there were 2 of us. Are you going to act? He asked, knowing that from the very beginning I considered betrayal unacceptable and my views have not changed over the years. Then my phone showed that I had received another message and an incoming call from my soon-to-be college-bound son. I answered the call first. Hi, Robert, how's your morning? I tried to sound cheerful. Hey, Dad, I need to ask you something. Are you and Mom okay? What do you mean? Trying not to show the pain in his voice. You go out to celebrate with the employees, then you get drunk and don't come home. Mom called everyone, found Uncle Jerry, and then got dressed up and went out with a few friends. I'm not stupid, Dad. We're just going through a rough patch, son. Please stay out of the way while we try to work things out, okay? I tried to brush it off and hoped that it would work. Understood, old man, but remember that I support you, no matter how hard you try to fix everything. If you want to talk or need help burying a corpse, I'm with you. He laughed and ended the call. I looked at Jerry and asked him not to interfere. I didn't want to lose my friend or my wife. Then I read the message. You should sleep in the guest room for a while. I think your wife brought something home that you could avoid. Also get tested for STDs. My day kept getting better and better. Why don't you give me all the information you have on them to help with the divorce? I sent the answer, and he quickly received the answer. The cost of everything I have will be considerable, my friend. I thought, not for the last time, who the hell is this mysterious friend who knows so much about my situation? I finished breakfast and told Jerry that I had a few things to do, so I should go. First, I called Evelyn, my secretary, and said that I wouldn't come today, but I would be there tomorrow. I then called my lawyer and asked him to find me an experienced divorce lawyer and start transferring all my investments to the company so that they would become part of the trust my father left me, thereby cutting her out of everything I could. Damn bitch. Then I drove home because I needed to get cleaned up and get ready for meetings later that day. The house was empty and had the feel of a tomb. I thought it was appropriate since our marriage was dead. He should have had a tombstone. Robert left a note saying he was out with friends until late that evening, and Becky said he was helping friends at a charity event. Yes, of course it helps. When I finished in the bathroom, I got dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, but as I was putting on my sneakers, one slipped out of my hand and rolled under the bed. As I bent down to retrieve it, I saw a glowing package stuck between the springs on her side of the bed. As I got closer, I discovered that it was a packet of birth control pills, and it was already more than half empty. This was the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. Then I realized that I no longer cared what Becky wanted, how she would eat, or even if she would have a place to stay. The trust bought the house we lived in and paid the utilities and taxes for the house and my cabin on a small private lake that I never told anyone about except my son. It turned out that both my son and I enjoyed a peaceful and relaxing time fishing. So when I bought the lake on which the cabin stood, I hired several unemployed men whom the sheriff knew to be honest men to patrol the lake and the house to keep it quiet and quiet. In exchange, I paid them slightly above the average hourly rate and allowed them to use the space for their family's 4th of July celebration, as long as they cleaned up afterward. I wanted to just take Robert and go there and forget about all this crap, but I was responsible for too many friends and their families. I couldn't just run and hide. So here I am sitting in my bank, waiting for my friend Stefan. We had been friends since elementary school, so I opened all my accounts with him when he became the branch manager. All joint accounts were closed within an hour, and new ones were opened in my name. I then asked him to prepare the documents to form an LLC corporation. He raised an eyebrow, but complied with my wishes. My next stop was Fred, my lawyer. He just hired a divorce lawyer, and if I don't mind, I'll be her first client. I believe everyone deserves a chance, but when I walked into his office, he was sitting at his desk, and an older lady was sitting on his side of the desk. He stood up and came over to shake my hand. "What's up, Hal? It's a shame, under these circumstances, to sit down." I sat down on the other chair opposite him. He sat back down as he said, "Hal Kemp, meet Carla Thomas. Carla, meet Hal. He's your new client." I saw that he was enjoying the situation. We discussed my divorce, and she asked what type I wanted. When I looked at her, she explained that there are 4 types of divorce: 1 reconciliation, 2 equal division, 3 scorched earth, and 4 nuclear war, depending on how dirty I am willing to go. She then told my lawyer that she would need another assistant and that her daughter needed a job, so she would call her and ask her to stop by HR to fill out paperwork for new hires, and she could start work later that day. By the way, now that I've met a man, I don't think he'll agree to the first 2 options, so while we're playing dirty, I'm going to need a rat in the maze that I can trust to do the dirty work that no one knows about. Must know. She handed me her business card and gathered her things. But before she left the office, she said to my lawyer, "I hope you have removed the coffee maker from my office and put in a full tea set." My lawyer mumbled something about Monday, and she just said she would call her nephew Tom to set everything up today and walked out. Carla turned out to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. 2 weeks later, I walked into her office for an interview and waited with her secretary as I heard her old voice begin to rise and then explode. We then heard the phone receiver clatter onto the base. Then the secretary pressed the intercom and announced that I had just arrived. It took her a little while, then the door opened and she invited me inside. She then closed the door while my eyes quickly scanned the room, searching for traces of blood. I asked her if there were any problems I should be aware of. She replied that it was just a friendly call between family members and offered me a plate of cookies that she had baked the night before to bring today. I knew I was safe because I hadn't paid her a penny yet, so I took 2. I was moving my things into the guest room with the adjoining bathroom when Robert and some of his friends returned home to play video games and ransack the refrigerator for drinks and snacks. I was walking down the hallway to the guest room with another load of clothes and saw Robert standing at the doorway with a worried look on his face. "Hi, Dad. How are you? My doctor said I might be developing a virus, and it would be best if I avoid too close contact with everyone until it clears up so I can get rid of it." I didn't like lying to him, but I wasn't ready to tell him the truth yet. He asked if I needed help when my phone rang again. I said it would be nice to get some help, and with the help of his friends, we finished it all in record time. I ordered pizza for everyone to thank them for their help. I then settled into my new bedroom, laying out my clothes, organizing my bathroom, installing my new TV, and connecting it to my Wi-Fi network. Robert kept popping in, asking if they needed any more help, because they were getting ready to leave. I just smiled and said I would be fine until his mom came back. His eyes narrowed, and then he said that she had written to him that she had gone to Aunt Claire's for a few days to take care of her as she was sick, and that she had talked to me about it and everything was fine. I pretended to forget about it, citing work stress. He turned away, muttering something about who is deceiving whom, and left with his friends. I waited a couple of minutes to ensure privacy, and then opened my phone to see that I had no messages from my soon-to-be ex-wife. All but one were spam. That one message was from my lawyer asking me to call her on her personal number at any time, so. Hello, Carla, this is Hal. How can I help you? Hello, Hal. Time to choose how you want to proceed, 3 or 4. I felt empty where my heart used to be as I said, 4 please, her time has come. I understand, Hal. Remember that everything has an end and you will get through this. By the way, I have never worked with your investigator before, but every time I asked for anything, photos, audio, whatever, he made sure it was delivered to my office within 24 hours. Can I ask how you met him? I was wondering if you would mind if I hired him on a permanent basis. He is a little demanding on price, but I would pay him 50% more for it. What he gave me. What could I say? I have no idea who you're talking about. Or how much did he charge me? Whoever it is, or is this man who knows so much about me going to come back for another ransom? My mind was drowning in a whirlpool of possibilities. Of course, I'm done with him, so you can make a deal with him, is what came out of my mouth. Anything else? She said she had everything she needed, and we ended the call. I sat back and thought I must be in the weirdest divorce on the planet, and was actually expecting a call from Hollywood with an offer for the film rights. Then another message. She's on her way, but not from where you think she's coming from, followed by the link, isn't Aunt Claire living further south than you? Why is her car coming from the east? I screamed into the phone, who is this? Why are you doing this to me? I pretended to be your investigator for your lawyer, and like I said, nothing more than you're willing to give, remember? So I'm helping you. I just decided to go the other way for the bill, and you'll get the tax deduction later, so that you will win twice. But you're not going to tell me who it is, are you? I almost gave up asking. Then he suggested something I hadn't thought of before. What makes you sure that you don't know me already? And then came the reply, you need to stay home tonight. I told your lawyer to pay overtime and have the servers with you when she arrives. Please sit back and watch it happen. I can even make you a copy of the DVD. Remember, after your last stress doctor told you to avoid hot spices. Who is this son of a bitch? I arrived home at 5 p.m. and the link sent to me showed Becky was 2 hours away. Not knowing what to expect, I put on some comfortable jeans and running shoes, a loose t-shirt from some gym I'd never heard of, and my good friend, a Colt 1911 45-AH pistol with an extended magazine in a holster on my lower back. I still had an hour and 15 minutes left, so I went to get some takeaway from Stubby's. Jerry was shocked when I ordered the monster sausage roll with 2 types of sausage and 3 types of cheese, instead of my standard ham and cheese sandwich. I was silent and Jerry asked if it was today. All I could do was nod. Jerry called Honey and told her that she would be closing the pub and also opening it tomorrow. Then he went to the office to get his coat. He gave her an extra $100 for the inconvenience and came up to me and told me my food was free. I told him I didn't want company, but he interrupted me, saying I had it all wrong. He said I was going to deal with Becky tonight. He said he was smart enough to be unavailable for the next 48 hours. He then said he was dating a woman in a nearby town, and she was happy to spend a few private days with him. And when he got there, he would take out the battery so no one could find it when someone emptied that drain. He then got into his Jeep and waved as he headed onto the highway. I drove home with the food, not knowing what to think about everything my eyes had seen. There was a man on my street dressed in an old-time city shouter uniform with a large bell in his hand. A man in casual pants and a shirt, wearing a sport coat, sat on my rocking chair with a briefcase next to him, and further to the right was a woman dressed in the same era of clothing as the town loudmouth. When I got out of the car, I noticed that all the houses on our street had their curtains up and their porch lights were on. I wasn't sure what it was, but it crawled up my spine as I walked up to the door, just as the town loudmouth rang the bell loudly and announced in a thunderous voice, "Attention everyone, the owner of the house is back. Man." In a sports coat said he was there to deliver papers, but had no idea who the others were. I walked into the kitchen and asked him if he wanted soda or water. He saw the Sprite in my hand and asked if I had more, so I pulled out another one and gave it to him. He sniffed my sausage roll, but I told him I wasn't sharing. He asked where I got it from, so I handed him a spare menu I had lying around. I checked my phone again, and it showed that there were 43 minutes left until she arrived. Hell, I didn't have enough time to enjoy it all, so I cut it in half. I put one half on a plate and wrapped the other half and put it in the refrigerator for later. I stayed with soda so as not to be the same. "Robert, I wanted to tell you how proud I am of the man you've become," I said as I reeled in the fishing line with a good catch of crappie. "I was happy to create an umbrella to protect all the companies under the trust while you worked on merging them, and when I retire, my entire trust will be merged with yours, so your family will not need for anything." I saw the love my son had for me in his eyes. "Also, I want to ask for your forgiveness. While you were growing up, I only provided the basic necessities for the family and a few luxuries, nothing more. So I taught you to work for what you want, instead of just giving it to you. You know the value of an honest day's work for an honest pay." I paused. "At the end of the week, I'll retire and hand over my company to you. You deserve it, and you deserve it. I'll stay on as a consultant." I handed him another beer and one for myself. "Not only will you get my company, but you will also get control of my personal trust fund, valued at $121 million. I will teach you how to find good investments to fund your company trust fund to take that pressure off of you. But never forget your family and spend as much time with them as I did with you. And don't make the same mistakes I did with my mom and your divorce, right?" Robert laughed. "But how will you live, Dad, if you give me everything?" "I'll take what I need from the family trust, son." I laughed loudly. "Our family has roots in European nobility. When our side of the family came to the States, we were already rich. So when we wanted to start a company, we went to the trust board and presented them with our idea. If all 7 agreed, then funds were available. There are 7 representatives on the council, representing the 7 countries where our family has branched. That this trust owns it would make you raise your eyebrows, and that's a fact. I made sure Robert knew that if you take out a loan from a family trust, you pay it back with interest and thank the trust for releasing the funds and making them available. Whatever happens, family takes care of family. Never forget this. Then I told him I was moving from a house to a cabin when I retired. Then he could move his family into my house, which was big enough for several more grandchildren. Then I looked him in the eye and told him that the house must be filled with children's laughter, and he needed to hurry. I was 84 years old when I was stricken with a heart attack one morning while fishing for breakfast. It was an easy departure. I felt confident that I had provided the best for those I loved, and I was content. My spirit stood next to my son at my gravestone. I hugged him and his wife, as well as my 5 grandchildren. I knew that my son had found the love of his life that I could never find, and his wife would always support him, surrounded by their children. I blessed them as my spiritual body began to become thinner and then disappeared. It was my time to move on, wrapped in the love of my family and a warm smile. I took my first step. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.